Good morning. Today is Sunday, November 16th, 2025, and this is the weekly Bitcoin price forecast, looking at where Bitcoin went in the last week and where it could potentially go in the future. So we see this monthly candle right here. That's not pretty. So we went all the way from the start of the month, about 16 days ago at 109 to now down below 95. So that's a $14,000 drop. $14,000 drop at this point. And we see that's taking us below, well, right to the low or the starting point of May. So basically you've kind of round tripped this year, and even less actually. So November of last year, we started, let me see, November of last year, we closed at 96 and we're now at 95. So, I mean, we're below where we were a year ago. At this point, I'm looking at a couple things. So, I mean, this is the monthly chart at this point that we're looking at. So I see that we do have the 21 moving average here. There's a couple reasons that I've been talking about 87K for about a month now at this point. I said, if we can't get some way above this, then we're probably going to go back down to about 87K. And there's reasons for that, and I'll go into that on the weekly chart. But for right now, what I'm seeing is, hey, this is your 21 moving average, 21-month moving average. And as we see at this point, hey, it is rejected off 21, rejected off the 21 to go higher, and rejected potentially off the 21 one more time to go higher. So I would like to see it come down and kind of retest that area one more time, and that'll be just something interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see how that ends up playing out, just because this realistically has been a strong rejection area for this entire bull run, even since 2022, going all the way back to almost 3 years ago at this point. So, I mean, yeah, that's really, I mean, I can't call this bearish. I mean, I can't call this bullish right now until we see some type of turnaround to get back above, like, 115 and whatnot. Yeah, I realistically can't call it bullish. So on the weekly chart, and another reason that I'm really targeting 87K is the fact that this is where we're at right here. We talk about, I'm looking at this kind of area in here. We see these green areas having an indicator that marks off areas of imbalance, just basically saying like, hey, this was an area where price hasn't quite retraced to just yet. From the close here to the open of this month, it only came down so far, but it never came all the way back down to the top of this wick. So I'm saying that, hey, this is 86,000. That also lines up with 21-month moving average. This should be a strong area. On top of that, this area right here serves as somewhat of a support. So we see that this was a resistance for the longest, 87K, before it could move up for weeks and weeks. But now that'll end up serving as support. So there are several different reasons that I think this will be strong. 77K, that's a little bit lower and whatnot, and it kind of coincides with the top of the 70s, really coincides with the top of what was here. But this imbalance has closed at this point. So it closed in April of 2025 around the tariff time. So it came down here, closed that gap is filled. This has not been closed just yet. So this is why I think it is plausible that we could end up going back down there. So if you're trading, this is a good, I'm not going to, not financial advice, but this is a good short opportunity. You've had 5, really, this is 6 weeks, but, out of those 6 weeks, 5 of them have been bearish. So I think that trend will end up continuing at least until you hit that wall of resistance that you have there. So, I mean, we're all looking at the same chart, right? So, okay, let's take a look here. So we are below a couple key levels. So I thought that this level would hold quite a bit stronger, this uptrend. So this uptrend line that I've been kind of talking about, I was like, okay, well, this will just probably bounce off here. Since it didn't, I have to play this area. And if it doesn't break below there, if it doesn't stop there, then the next area will be right around here, like I said, around 75. 75, again, being a round number. I think that is relatively close to the realized price. Well, actually, realized price is down here. But you start running into your 200 moving average somewhere within 10,000 of this. So this was the top here. We saw that it came down and tested one more time. So again, your mid 70s, that is a reasonable area if it does not stop at your 85K or 86K, somewhere in here. So if it ends up going lower than that, yes, this would be my next stopping point. But again, we play this week to week, and just basically seeing where this could potentially go. Now, with all that being said, the fundamental case for Bitcoin has not changed for me at all. I don't see this, being an extended thing to where you had a drop here back in 2021 that just went for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, went all the way up from was it 66 down to 15. I think it went all the way down to about 8. The bottom here is 15. Yep, that is a 76% drop. That to me is not realistic. So if you have a 76% drop from here, 76, 76, 76, that'll bring you back down to 29K. That's not realistic. And the reason that that's not realistic is, number one, you would have hit the realized price. You would have hit the long-term holder realized price. You would have broken the 20. You would have, let me see, where's the monthly? They don't even have a monthly 200 month moving average. It hadn't been around for 200 months. So we have to look at the next best one. So 200 week moving average is at 65. So you're not going below 65. That's just not, I don't see that happening. Again, your realized price, which will actually still probably be moving up at this point, because like there are people who are taking profits and realizing at this point, realizing at a much higher price point, I need to update this. But as this number moves up and you have your 200 week moving average here, you're kind of demarking your lower bound pretty much. So historically, I mean, I don't have the realized price charted. I just have the place where it's at currently. But if you look at it, realized price has been the place where price has stopped. Michael Saylor's price is somewhere, his average buying price is somewhere around 74. Obviously, he has a huge market share in the market, somewhere around, I want to say, a half a percent to 1%. But we'll see. All we can talk about right now is where price is at. Can't make too many projections to the future, but what I do say is that, hey, this has been the strong trend. The strong trend at this point has been to the downside. And we'll keep playing it to the downside until I see something that says, hey, this is actually bullish. But right now, this is absolutely bearish. It's bearish in the short term. Long term, still bullish, but short term, yes, we have to. I would consider this bearish. It has to be. You've broken your support here. You have broken the 50-week moving average. You have broken the 100 level and closed. And I mean, they're going to end up closing below 100K. Obviously, it's the weekend. And now, you've broken this upward channel, which it has not done at this point since never. Well, I won't say never, but since October 2023, this has been intact. Boom, 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 boom. Now, if you break this, okay, well, that might be significant. Again, this upward trending area, that is, it seems to be significant. Obviously, with this escape velocity line, it has to get above it. It got more above it than it had in previous times. Even if I adjust this up to say that this went from here to here, even still, that would be kind of somewhere in that range. So this is probably the longest I've talked about the charts and whatnot. But let's go down to the daily chart, kind of see what we have, and I'm going to talk about a little bit of the stock market too, because like this isn't just a Bitcoin thing. This is more so, I think there are correlations as well. So let's take a look. Again, we've been in this range since July. And it's really just been an ever sloping downward range. You've had periods to where it's spiked up, but overall it's been down. So, you had this peak. The peak was at 26, came down, couldn't make a new high. Came down again lower, couldn't make a new high. Made this lower high right here, and then now we're making a lower low. So again, high, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low at this point. So I don't foresee this just, shooting back above 107 just immediately. This is some very strong momentum that you have. And then on top of that, if we're looking at the daily chart, what I'm looking at is the moving averages. So the moving averages have crossed over here. The 21 is crossed below the 200, and now the 50 is about to cross below the 200, which is a death cross technically. This happened here once. It almost happened here, but didn't quite happen. It turned around right before things went off. But at this point, this happened as price was coming back up. Price is still going down now. We haven't had a real death cross just yet. I consider death cross being the 200 and the 50. I haven't had one just yet, so we'll see how this ends up playing out. Again, I think there could be some broader contagion in the markets at this point. So that's a daily chart. Again, a series of lower highs and lower lows at this point, just to keep the trend going. 4-hour chart, there's not too much to talk about. I mean, this is very much so, just a very obvious downtrend. So we've been below the 200 moving average since early October on the 4-hour chart, and then just continue to move down here. So this moving average is all the way below here. Your 200 moving average on the 4-hour chart is at 106, and this is the area that I said, hey, we need to even think about getting above here before we even consider calling this bullish. So I think that's about all I have to talk about on the charts. This overall is it's bearish. So let's even draw this from right here. If we draw this from right here, you'll see that, hey, this is now your trend. So, I mean, you could see a turnaround right here to where it comes back up to 104, but then I would expect another drop after that. Or some type of continuation to the downside, again, down to about 87, 85, something like that. Okay, enough of the charts for right now. Forex Factory, this is your economic news. The government has reopened. So the U.S. economy has survived the government shutdown. We don't even have the thing down here anymore saying that, hey, this might be affected by the government shutdown. It just, again, it's back open. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, nothing. Wednesday, FOMC minutes. That'll come from the most recent meeting, which was in, I guess we're in October. Yeah, which was in October. Thursday, non-farm employment change, which is, I don't know, I guess this is October's numbers. I'm not sure. Normally these are released on the first Friday of the month, but now they're being released on a Thursday. So, something to pay attention to. And then Friday, flash PMI for manufacturing and services. So, we want to see these numbers remain above 55. I'm sorry, we want to see them remain above 50 as for expansion of the economy in manufacturing and services. Excuse me. But that's pretty much it for this week. Not too much. We'll start seeing a flood of more news that was not suppressed, but was not released in the October releases. So I talked a little bit earlier about Bitcoin's correlation. So basically, this is looking at the different markets that it could be in lockstep with. So you have the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ, which are your two major stock indexes. You also have the Dow Jones, your Dow 30. It also has gold on here, but I won't. I'll show you why I'm not too concerned about looking at gold in relation to Bitcoin. But what I see here for Bitcoin and the NASDAQ is there are periods, or in the stock index, there are periods where basically this number goes from -1 to 1, and 0 being your middle line. -1 means that Bitcoin and the stock markets are doing the opposite of each other. They're going in opposite directions. 1 means they're in lockstep. They're going in the same direction. And 0 just means there's no correlation at all. They're just doing their own thing. There's no trend. The overall, it does kind of average out to 0, meaning they're kind of doing their own thing. But I'm looking at the periods. So here, if we look at from, let's say, 2020 to roughly, hell, we could even call it 2022. Most of this, if you look at it, it was above the 0 line. So that means, okay, overall, the stock market, the stock indexes in Bitcoin are moving in somewhat of a lockstep. The closer this gets to 1, the more lockstep they are. But in general, they're moving in the same direction because they're remaining above 1. You had your dip here where, again, Bitcoin dipped harder than everything else, but you see it just recovered back up to the top side too. And even dipped down into here. This is January 2022. But also the stock indexes were dipping too at that point. There was a lack of liquidity in the system. This is January 2022. Let me see, December 2022. And so this period from here, from like late 2022 all the way until 2024, there was no real correlation. I would say that, Bitcoin and the stock indexes were doing their own things. And realistically, this was more Bitcoin outperforming everything else during this period, all the way through, July of 2024. And from there, what I see is that Bitcoin and the stock market, they have a positive correlation since then. Now, it wasn't perfect. Again, it goes in cycles of up and down. But overall, this is positive. It's above the 0 line. And we see here, it was just up and down, negative deposit, negative deposit. So there's no correlation in my mind. But up here, yes, I would call this, if you look at what the average correlation is, probably somewhere around 0.75. So that means that realistically, Bitcoin and the stock indexes are doing similar things. So if the stock market is then moving up, then Bitcoin is also moving up. If the stock market is moving down, Bitcoin is moving down. I say all this to say I'm looking at the stock market too, and I don't have a ton of faith that it's going to continue on with this upward trend, especially if we talk about since July, because this July 2024, so I guess it's not as So realistically, I mean, I think the stock market is very overextended at this point. I think we passed the point where, I mean, everyone knows that it's kind of just AI leading the chart at this point. And if we're looking at the numbers, AI doesn't look like it's going to pan out, at least not in the short term. But just the infrastructural, the financial commitments that are having to be made to prop this AI thing up just now, I don't think that's going to be in the short term something that really is a grower. So we'll have to see. But right now, if I'm looking at this and I'm saying that, all right, well, these are moving in lockstep. This probably, if the stock market goes down, that means that Bitcoin is probably going to go down as well. To what extent, I do not know. And again, this can always change. But the average since July 2024 is that these have been in somewhat of a lockstep. Not one to one. One to one is like up here where it's like 80, 90% correlation. One being a perfect correlation that when one does one thing, the other one does exactly the same thing in proportion. But here at this point, now it is more so of a I don't know. It's a positive correlation. So they're going to do similar things at this point. Again, if it's below here, they're going to do opposite things. But we see for the most part, overall, and like from here, like you kind of see that it did go down to the negative area in some instances. But it went just as much up as it did down. So I would call this an area of zero correlation. This is a positive correlation. This is a positive correlation. Kind of call this area negative. This is definitely a positive correlation here. So you're just looking at your different areas and where you could be. This has been a longer one. This is 17 minutes. So this has been Chris Talks Crypto. I will check out a crypto-based resources on christalkscrypto.com, and I will see y'all on the moon. Take care. Bye-bye.